California's lawmakers consider wealth tax of 1.5% on anyone with a global worth above $1 billion and 1% for those whose wealth is above $50 million, even if they have left the state. Now, to me, I don't really care necessarily what California does in terms of like increasing their taxes and whatnot because they're just basically self destructing their whole state. What I find crazy is that they think it is anywhere possibly legal to continue to tax someone who has left their state. Like, that is just beyond insane to me. So, California lawmakers are pushing legislation that would impose a new tax on the state's wealthiest residents, even if they have already moved to another part of the country. Assemblyman Alex Lee, a progressive Democrat, last week introduced a bill in the California state legislature that would impose an extra annual 1.5% tax on those with a worldwide net worth above $1 billion beginning January 2024. As early as 2026, the threshold for being taxed would decrease. Those with a worldwide net worth exceeding $50 million would have to pay a 1% annual tax on wealth, while billionaires would still be taxed 1.5%. Worldwide wealth includes diverse holdings such as farm assets, arts, and other collectibles, as well as stocks and hedge fund interest. And the thing that really bothers me about a wealth tax is like, for example, let's just use this as an example. Say you spent $20 on like a pack of Diet Coke or something. Well, it's more like $10, right? But let's just say $20 for this example, right? So now you've already bought the item, right? You can still probably sell the Diet Coke basically for $20 still, like that pack, but you're going to get taxed on it for just holding it, which is insane to me, right? Another way to really look at this is say that you literally just had $100 in your account. You're going to get taxed on that. And it's just sitting in your account, right? Because it's all about wealth, right? It bothers me so much because like you're taxing people on things that they haven't actually like realized any gains on yet, right? Now, obviously this is kind of like focus on the super rich, but what's to stop them for like lowering the threshold more and more and more until now it's like low millionaires, like people who just passed the seven-figure net worth, which many people don't really understand is actually a decent amount of people because of their 401ks or their Roth IRAs. Like, it's going to get to the point where California is just going to constantly self-destruct their whole state because of their stupid policies. Like, I just don't even understand why they keep doing this. And here's the thing. Say they were able to pass this, right? Say they actually passed this bill. What are they even going to do with the extra tax money? Like, what are they literally going to do with the money? Because they obviously cannot manage their money correctly. They don't put their money into anything actually productive. They spend disgusting amounts of money on something stupid like a one bathroom public space for like $2-3 million. Like, that whole state, head to toe, are morons when it comes to managing their money. And it's not even their money, it's the people's money. Crazy. California already taxes the wealthy more than most states, with the top 1% of earners accounting for about half of the state's income tax collections. According to Forbes' 2022 World's Billionaire List, there are 186 billionaires living in California, down from 189 the year before, but far more than any other state. And here's the thing, right? Every single one of those billionaires needs to leave California. They need to leave California like right now. Move to a state that will, I don't know, maybe just not slap you around. In 2020, California had the greatest number of millionaire households in the US, with 1.14 million households having 1 million or more in investable assets. The legislation is an altered version of a wealth tax approved in the California Assembly in 2020, which the Democrat-led state Senate did not pass. The version just introduced includes measures to allow California to impose wealth taxes on residents even years after they have left the state for another location. Which, by the way, how on earth are they even going to enforce it if they were to actually do something like that? Because I bet you that the state that these billionaires probably end up moving to are going to move to a state that is very tax friendly and would probably protect them. Like, what, now we're going to have like a war between states because of taxes? It's just, Lord. The version just okay, so the bill includes provisions to create contractual claims tied to the assets of a wealthy taxpayer who does not have the cash to pay their annual wealth tax bill because most of their assets are not easily converted into cash. This claim would force the taxpayer to make annual filings with California's Franchise Tax Board and later pay the wealth taxes owed, even if they have moved out of the state. California was one of the several blue states last week to unveil bills to bring in new wealth taxes, along with Connecticut, Hawaii, Illinois, Maryland, Minnesota, New York, and Washington. Each state's proposal contained a different tax approach, but they all concentrated on the idea that the rich must pay more. And this just bothers me. And here's the thing. I don't even care about the rich paying taxes or not, or like paying more taxes or not. I just dislike the concept of people taxing you, trying to steal your money on stuff that you haven't even sold yet. Like, that just bothers me so much. Well, I mean, taxes bothers me so much anyways. But it just, like, again, this is more focused on like billionaires and super millionaires. But let's just use it like the example of like, let's say like you are like a teacher who has been basically, because a lot of teachers, if you don't know, are basically forced to put a percentage of their income towards like investments to their like retirement. And a lot of teachers, without even paying attention, would actually have over a 7-figure net worth due to this forced investment, right? Imagine if they just started to get taxed every year on their investments that they haven't even sold. Like, that's just horrible. Like, I just don't understand why states think that this is a good idea. And this is what's also crazy. A lot of the people who try to like impose these like tax rules have no understanding about financial matters at all. Each state's proposal, so Lee has made public statements supporting this message. The working class has shouldered the tax burden for too long, Lee tweeted. The ultra rich are paying little to nothing by hoarding their wealth through assets. Time to end that. What this fool doesn't understand is that the working class, the middle class, also hold the majority of their wealth in assets. And that's also what allows them to go from the working class, middle class to the upper class, because those assets that they end up owning end up appreciating in value due to compound interest. And what do you know? Now they actually have a really good net worth. Least if the tax would impact 0.1% of California households and generate an additional 21.6 billion in state revenue, which would be directed at the state general fund. California has one of the highest taxes of any U.S. state. Advocates argue that the money could be used to bolster funding for schools, housing, and other social programs. And Lee hopes it could help to iron out California's $22.5 billion budget deficit. Like, what is California spending their money on? Like, what are you guys doing? This is how we can keep addressing our budgetary issues, he told the Los Angeles Times. Basically, we could plug the entire hole. Yeah, so basically, you're trying to steal a plug from someone's house to plug the hole that you made. Does that make sense? No, it does not. Some critics argue that the bill will have the opposite effect through high administrative costs and causing people to leave the state in large numbers. Jared Walczak, vice president of state projects at Tax Foundation, told Mail Online California's proposed wealth tax is anything but modest. Assuming ordinary rates of market returns, a 1.5% tax on the highest net worth Californians would be the equivalent of raising the state's income tax rate to 33% on their investment income. The federal capital gains tax rate is 20%. To put that in context, extraordinarily high taxes on wealth and investment will drive the wealthiest Californians out of state, taking their other tax dollars and sometimes their businesses with them. California is projecting $208 billion in general fund revenue for the current fiscal year, up from $146 billion in FY 2020. The state has a deficit despite significant revenue growth. A voracious appetite for new spending has wiped out what should have been a large surplus. A recent analysis by James Doty, President Emeritus and Economics Professor at Chapman University, found that the 10 highest tax states lost nearly 1 in 100 residents in net domestic migration between July 2021 and July 2022, while the 10 lowest tax states gained almost 1 in 100. California lawmakers pushing the wealth tax believe they can get around the issue of residents leaving by trying to tax people even after they leave the state, said Patrick Leeson, Vice President of State Affairs at Americans for Tax Reform. Which, by the way, think about it. They realize just how bad of a tax plan they have that they know people are going to try to flee. So they're like, yeah, you're going to try to flee. Let's just chain you and basically enslave you and basically force you to pay us money that you earned that we had no part in. But, due to your creativity, potentially hard work, hiring people, creating businesses, because of all of that you had a hand in, that we didn't have any part in, we're just going to steal your money, Disgusting. Gordon Gray, director of fiscal policy at the American Action Forum, told Mail Online, one observation is that the emerging California approach, at least by the lights of one of its advocates, appears to be entering the road in much the same fashion as the glossier national plans. With extravagant claims, the policy will be unable to deliver. Wealth taxes by their nature involve significant administrative challenges with respect to asset valuation. Despite the breezy dismissal of the headline rate, effective rates under wealth taxes can be very high, which, among other problems, rendered these taxes inefficient revenue sources. He added, one prominent national wealth tax proposal that was subject to more rigorous analysis found it would be bringing in a fraction of the revenue claimed by its advocates. These features are exasperated at the state level because the tax is that much easier to avoid. Florida is pretty nice 6 months and 1 day of the year. This is separate and apart from legal concerns. California would seek to continue to tax non residents through exit taxes. While I'm not a lawyer, this approach would potentially run afoul of the Interstate Commerce Clause as well as fundamental rights to travel and associate freely. Past studies have shown that the top 1% of taxpayers pay around 50% of state income taxes in New York, California, and elsewhere. This had led to questions about the damage a mass exodus of wealthy residents could do to tax revenue. Walkezak noted that a wealth tax would cause huge problems for California, joking that the people most excited about this type of law should be people in Texas, where some high-profile Californians have moved to in recent years. A wealth tax could be particularly destructive in California, home to so many tech startups, because the owners of promising businesses could be taxed on hundreds of millions of dollars worth of estimated business value that never actually materializes, said Walkezak. He added very few taxpayers would remit wealth taxes, but many taxpayers would pay the price. The only people who should genuinely love a California wealth tax are the ones who work in Texas' Economic Development Office. However, some argue that wealth taxes are vital for combating economic inequality. Maryland Democrat Delegate Janelle K. Wilkins has proposed a bill so that families would owe taxes on inheritance over $1 million instead of $5 million, as is the case today, etc., etc., etc. And here's the thing. What people need to understand is that the potential damage of creating a wealth tax is massive, because a lot of these billionaires that live in these states are billionaires because they founded a company, or they were a CEO of a company, or they are a CEO of a company. There's some sort of founder, etc., big investor, all that sort of stuff. Meaning they have direct hands in hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of jobs in the state. They can, at will, and be willing to spend millions of dollars to migrate their whole business to a different state, because after 6 months, pretty much, they would actually make their money back, or once tax time comes, they would have saved so much money in taxes that they could spend almost anything and make it like financially worthwhile. Like, this is the thing that people don't really understand, is like, when you start taxing people like this at this level, you're not just trying to harm them, you're actually harming a lot of people that are somewhat tied to them, right? You have people underneath them, you have the employees of the businesses that they own, which they could have multiple parts in. By the way, one of the easiest ways for these billionaires to save a lot of money: fire as many people as they possibly can. Cut out the fat of their businesses, and there you go. They just saved a whole bunch of money so that when tax time comes, they could pay their taxes and screw the employees, basically. They don't care about the employees. Like, if people really dislike billionaires so much, do you think that they're going to have heartache for firing hundreds of thousands of people if it means that they could save money? It just doesn't make any amount of sense for California to do this. But hey, if these billionaires stay in California, if this thing passes, those billionaires are just stupid. By the way, if you want to learn how to get out of debt and master your money, go down below.